Hey everyone, and welcome back to News to Astonish, where we discuss comics, movies, games, and more. And my name is Ronnie. Today, we have an interesting article here. Some interesting news that a lot of my Discord members who brought this to my attention, I really wanted to talk about it. Originally, I was actually thinking about talking about it, but I'm like, you know what? Everybody else is talking about it, and I really want to discuss the whole situation with Black Widow and, Scarlett Johansson suing Disney over the release of the film. And basically what happened was, just to get the gist of it before we get into details, is that Disney is being sued by Scarlett Johansson, who plays Black Widow, over the release of the film. Originally, this film was set to release last year, but due to the effects of the pandemic, that contract had to be breached, and some changes, such as releasing the movie simultaneously on Disney Plus at a premium price of $30 and in theaters, affected the earnings, the potential maximum earnings that Scarlett Johansson herself could have earned. And I'm going to go ahead and read this article from The Variety. Also, Disney did respond really quickly in a very fiery response, which is like, clapping right back at Scarlett Johansson and basically calling her like a bit inconsiderate because of the prolonged COVID-19 situation. So let's go ahead and go into The Variety and read this. And before I continue on, I want you guys to go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and click on bell notifications so you all don't miss anything related to comic book related content and, of course, Spidey content. And join my Discord. I thank you once again, my Discord peeps. If you're watching, thank you so much for sending this article my way. I really appreciate it. Without you guys, I wouldn't be caught up with a lot of news. I mean, I can only do so much. I'm only one person. Join my Discord. Again, guys, the invitation link to that is in the description box below. And also follow me on social media. You can follow me on Twitter. The link to that is down in the description box below as well. So let's go ahead and proceed with this article. Scarlett Johansson sues Disney for breach of contract over Black Widow release. So Disney's decision to release Black Widow on Disney Plus at the same time it hit theaters has sparked a legal battle between Scarlett Johansson and Disney, the actress that tasked with playing the Marvel superhero. In a lawsuit filed Thursday in Los Angeles Superior Court, attorneys for Johansson alleged that the Star's contract was breached when the studio opted not to debut the film exclusively in theaters, a move they claimed depressed ticket sales for the Avengers spinoff. Much of Johansson's compensation was tied to the box office performance of Black Widow, and if it hit certain benchmarks, bonuses would kick in. So I'm not exactly entirely familiar how an actor's earning works, but from what I know, an actor gets paid a set amount to do the film, and once the film gets released, they also receive royalties, or at least revenue. They gain revenue from the box office sales as well. So it's part of the contract. It's actually the part of the contract of every actor that does a movie. Basically, it's not just only Disney, Marvel Studios. That's just how it works across the board for any studio that actors do films for. Because in the end, actors are pretty much freelance people who do jobs for movies, basically, and their job is to perform. So Disney intentionally induced Marvel's breach of an agreement without justification in order to prevent Ms. Johansson from realizing the full benefit of her bargain with Marvel, and the suit reads. So this came to me as a surprise. We all know that Scarlett Johansson is no longer part of the MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, for those of you who don't know. Basically, when Johansson did all of her films, she's been doing like Black Widow ever since like Iron Man 2. And it kind of came as a shock and surprise to me that she would actually go after Disney like this. You got to know that Disney has really powerful lawyers. And honestly, I'm not even picking a side here, but I honestly do not know who to pick as far as what side goes. You can call Scarlett Johansson greedy if you want, but I think what's the really main issue is the principle. When you sign any binding contract, both positions need to basically abide by said contract. So Disney needs to do their part by abiding the rules of the stipulations of that contract, and so does the actor who gets hired by that studio. They need to abide by it. Now, if both abide by it, everything will be fancy. At the end of the day, this is a business, and basically it's a business agreement. So obviously something was breached. The person that, was part of that contract got upset, Scarlett Johansson. Now she's going after Disney. So remember, she's not part of the MCU anymore. Her character was killed. Spoiler alert if you have not watched any of the Marvel movies. So Disney announced in March that Black Widow would premiere simultaneously on the studio subscription-based streaming services. I remember that announcement as well. It was like, it came to me as a bit of a surprise, but not really at the same time, because honestly, I wasn't looking forward to Black Widow. I ended up seeing the movie twice, both in theaters and on Disney Plus. I liked the movie, and it was just fine, in my opinion. I wish it could have been better, although I do have some criticisms with the film because of some of the liberties they took with certain characters and some of the changes they made to certain characters' backstory, including Taskmaster. So I had a problem with that as well. Not my favorite movie as it stands. The ticket sales have declined after the first week release. So it's looking to become one of the lowest grossing Marvel movies of all time. So that's like right behind Thor: The Dark World, and that movie was not that great either. But I did enjoy the films for what they are, because they are Marvel movies after all. And again, I mentioned this in my review of Black Widow, if you haven't seen it, that it's just a fine addition to the Marvel Studios canon as far as it goes. Now, if you were to watch every single movie in order, according to the timeline and where these movies take place, Black Widow is a decent movie of how it stands along with the other movies. That's how it is about Marvel Studios films. All movies complement each other. Some of the movies that come out after or before seemingly make other movies that much better. So Disney announced back in March that it would premiere its movie back on the streaming services and in theaters. And the movie was made as the movie theater industry was rebounding from COVID-19 closures and capacity restrictions. On July 9th, Black Widow set a pandemic-era box office record with its $80 million debut. You got to admit, that is a good hit, considering the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic still in North America, and it earned additional $78 million overseas. Not bad. It also pulled $6 million on Disney+. Not bad again. Ticket sales steeply declined in subsequent weeks and currently stand at $319 million globally, putting Black Widow on track to become one of the lowest grossing Marvel movies of all time. So shortly after its debut, the National Association of Theater Owners, the industry's main trade organization, asserted the simultaneous release of Black Widow in theaters and streaming cost Disney money in revenue per viewer over the life of the film. However, the suit notes that Disney stock rose after the company disclosed the rental figures. So Disney chose to placate Wall Street investors and pad its bottom line rather than allow its subsidiary Marvel to comply with the agreement. And the suit reads, "To no one's surprise, Disney's breach of the agreement successfully pulled millions of fans away from the theaters and towards its Disney Plus streaming services." So Disney really wanted that moolah. I mean, again, Disney won in both ways. A lot of money came towards them on their streaming services as it did in the theaters. Not the highest grossing film, again, but still, it seems like Disney benefited a little bit more, actually a lot more than Scarlett Johansson did. And I can understand to a certain degree why Scarlett Johansson would be very upset at the situation, because in the end of the day, a contract was breached, and therefore the person that agreed to said contract, was left out, basically, not earning the potential maximum amount of money or revenue in this case that she could have earned. So the Wall Street Journal, which broke the news of the lawsuit, reports that the sources close to Johansson estimate that the decision to release the film concurrently on Disney Plus resulted in $50 million in lost in bonuses. That's a lot of money. I don't care how you look at it. That $50 million is so much money. Johansson's legal salvo comes as new distribution paradigms, and COVID-19 pandemic are reshaping the way that A-list actors are paid for their work. Many top actors include back-end profit participation as part of their contracts, but the rise of streaming services such as Netflix removed those forms of compensation, and the decision by traditional movie studios like Warner Bros. Disney to release their films on their own in-house subscription services has further upended these old ways of doing businesses. So that's another good point. Now, because of this lawsuit, this can change and pave the way on how actors basically do business. And now the movies that, like, say, for example, like the movies that came out on HBO Max, where they made the agreement with Warner Brothers to release the movies on their streaming services on HBO Max, those actors that were in those films can actually take a second look and think, maybe I can sue Warner Brothers, and maybe I can actually earn a little extra money because of this, because technically it is a breach of contract. Those movies that are coming out on HBO Max was set to release in theaters by Warner Brothers. But now, throughout this year of 2021, those movies are going to be coming out also on HBO Max as well. So we can see a huge potential loss to all those actors. But I think right now, with the whole HBO thing, I believe those actors are aware. They did sign a contract knowing that their films will be premiering on the streaming service. So I don't know if that's going to be a problem. We will have to just wait and see how this, what kind of reaction we get out of this, basically. This, lawsuit right here could be the start of something new. It can pave the way of how actors see doing businesses with movie studios. So that's kind of like, I fear that in a way, but what have I got to fear? I'm not even an actor. So we move on to this, because if you want, I'll post a link to the articles down in the description box below for you guys to check out. This is from the Variety. Again, so Disney fires back at Scarlett Johansson, calls Black Widow lawsuit sad and distressing. So the Walt Disney Company clapped back at Black Widow star Johansson, slamming the actress breach of contract lawsuit for showing callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So Disney went out of their way to actually make Scarlett Johansson look really bad, basically, kind of calling her a bit inconsiderate for like the horrific pandemic, and all she was really caring about is the money, the earnings that she could have basically made. This is why sometimes I don't really like Hollywood, because you get shallow people like this. I mean, I'm not really trying to call Scarlett Johansson shallow, but I can understand why it would come across that way, because we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. And on top of that, she earned a fat check of $20 million to star in the movie. So whatever revenue she's collecting, I mean, if I were her, I would have been kind of grateful for that. But then again, I don't know. The principle is that a contract was breached, and that's really what the main issue is here. So in the court filing on Thursday, Johansson and Disney's decision to send the Marvel movie to Disney Plus at the same time it was released in theaters cost her millions of dollars in back-end compensation. Those bonuses were tied to hitting box office benchmarks that Black Widow likely won't achieve. Disney is countering that it compiled with the terms of Johansson's deal to star in the Avengers spin-off films. There is no merit whatsoever to this filing, Disney said in an unusual fiery statement. The lawsuit is especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the company went to state that the star has already received $20 million for her work, and argued that the release of Black Widow on Disney Plus with Premier Access has significantly enhanced her ability to earn additional compensation on top of the $20 million she received to date. Disney did not provide any information about whether or not Johansson's pact was renegotiated so that she could share in a streaming rental revenue. So in March, Disney announced that Black Widow would release several of its movies, including Cruella, Jungle Cruise, and whatnot, on the basically the Premier Access of Disney Plus. So again, I already mentioned it before, but they already, like, Black Widow already did set a pandemic era box office record with $80 million in North America in its opening week. Excuse me. So again, guys, this is like really weird. I can't really take a side here because both do prove points. So it's kind of hard to say, is Scarlett Johansson being kind of greedy? No, I don't think so. I mean, she's just trying to set the principle. Contract was breached. She didn't get her earnings as promised. And I think it's safe to say that Disney went kind of behind her back to put the movie on Disney Plus. But then again, you can also say that Disney's within their right to do that because technically they own the property of Black Widow, which is also a property of Marvel. They own Marvel. So it's probably within their right, and I can see their point on both ends. So you guys, you decide. Comment down below. What are your thoughts about this? Do you think that, Disney was within their right to put the film on Premier Access on their streaming services? Do you think Scarlett Johansson is also within her right to sue Disney because of this? However this turns out, I don't think it's going to turn out really well for Scarlett Johansson personally, but we'll just have to wait and see until we hear more news about this, until they disclose more information about, the deal and the negotiations and whatnot. So anyways, guys, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click on bell notifications so you all don't miss anything. As always, I will see you all in the next comic panel.